Hi, everyone, and welcome inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman here with you today. Things are, you would think, kind of settling down, but Chris, I know that's not really the case for you. I know you've kind of still been at it, but there's still lots to discuss in this off season. So we're gonna obviously ASU got the bid into the Sun Bowl with they'll be playing the ACC champions Duke. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but the most pressing issue that I'm sure you're all curious about and all want to know about is the Sam Levit situation.
Oh, wow, really?
Elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, you did some big J journalism yesterday. You broke the news that he wasn't at the team banquet, the only team captain to not attend ASU's banquet yesterday. So, I mean, what do you make of that? Was it a surprise to you at all? I mean, what was your, reaction when you heard that and just everything surrounding it?
Yeah, I didn't expect that to happen, but during the banquet, I started to get some messages about people not seeing Sam Levit in attendance. And it's not just the team and the coaches, but there's a lot of prominent boosters and business people that also go to these. And I've been to many of them over the years. In fact, former ASU Director of Media Relations, Mark Brand, used to invite the core beat people to sit at a table and watch this event. So I've been there many times, didn't go to this one, wasn't really expecting that much to come of it from a reporting standpoint, and then heard that Sam Levit wasn't there, and then heard that Kenny Dillingham, while recognizing each of the captains that individually came up to the stage, and Sam Levit's name was there, and essentially Dillingham referred to the fact that Sam wasn't there, had some positive things to say, but also said that he wasn't going to not recognize him just because he's not in attendance. And then he said that he wished him well in whatever his future holds. And I was pretty quickly able to corroborate that was what took place, and then posted that, and that kind of went crazy on social media, as you would expect it to. Everybody's been in this Sam Levit watch mode in recent weeks. There was the report from On3 that he was likely to go into the transfer portal, which I never really fully corroborated, but then just the totality of things that had built up to this point led me to believe that it was maybe a little bit more likely than not that he would leave ASU. But then when he didn't show up at the banquet, which I think is a pretty unfortunate thing, because he's been a pretty good leader in terms of like his habits a lot of ASU's players said that they were surprised at how hard that Levit worked in the off season. And he had a rib injury that was pretty bad last year that he missed one game and came back and played through. And he had the foot injury this year, a Liz Frank injury that a lot of people would have shut it down and not played the rest of the season after that happened against Baylor. And he continued to try to work hard and get back and play. So it's unfortunate given that he decided to not go to the banquet. And if there had been some emergency or some problem related to his recovery from his foot surgery or something like that, then that would have been articulated at the banquet, and it wasn't. And so the natural implication, of course, then was that he just decided that he wanted to be somewhere else or not be there. And I just think that when Sam Levit's making almost $2 million this year playing for ASU football, and he helped to elevate ASU's brand and achieve a Big 12 championship last year, and a lot of positive things were accomplished due to Sam Levit. But then beyond that, you still have responsibilities, and you still have things that you need to be able to do as a leader and demonstrate. And I think paying the proper respect and appreciation to your teammates and to your coaches for what they had done in helping you accomplish the things that that you've accomplished that put you in this position. I think that was missing with his decision. And Kenny Dillingham, didn't really talk about it until today with the Sun Bowl, and we're gonna get into that.
Well, from that perspective, I'm going to leave that to Sam's team, out of respect for him, for how they want to, progress from that. I love Sam. Sam grew so much here, and he really did. And I grew so much learning from Sam. And I wish, whatever his future holds, I wish him nothing but the best. I absolutely want to see him succeed, and I can sleep really well at night knowing that we helped him progress himself along his journey. That is now the craziness of college football. With that, I'm very, very confident that we're going to have a really, really good quarterback at Arizona State. I can say that I'm very, very confident we're going to have a good quarterback at Arizona State.
And he kept it pretty vague with those thoughts, but he kind of, he saw the grin at the end there. He said, I'm very, very confident we'll have a good quarterback at Arizona State. What did you make of, I guess, the words he was saying, but also kind of his demeanor when saying them, and the fact that, anytime it seems like he's asked about it, he just says, that's my guy. I wish him the best. I want to help him out, and we're happy that we could help develop him.
Yeah, I think he's taken the high road, and he recognizes that Sam Levit did help ASU and elevate Kenny Dillingham, and they're in a much better position now moving forward to get a good quarterback via the transfer portal if that's what they ultimately happen to do. Yesterday, he made a comment when recognizing Sam Levit that he essentially said, I didn't want to be cowardly to not mention Sam Levit. And there was
that
people
seemed a little ironic too.
There was people in the audience who messaged me that they thought that it was ironic because it was Levit that had perhaps done a cowardly thing by not showing up at the banquet. Now, that wasn't directly what was said, but you could interpret some hidden, meaning if you choose to see it that way. But when Dillingham knows that the cameras are on and everybody's asking about Sam Levit, he said a lot of really positive things about how he loved him and that's his guy, and that he appreciated him and his work ethic and all that he did for the program and the type of person that he is, which totally understand that. And Dillingham is somebody that when his players have announced that they're going to transfer, he quote tweets the reports and says, go be great, or somebody's going to get a great player, or those types of things. And I think that genuinely he wants Sam Levit to be successful, whether that's at ASU or somewhere else. And he has a recognition that these are still just kids in a lot of ways, like they're in their formative years and trying to become the best versions of themselves. And there's a lot of pressure that are put on them by, he's got an agency now, and he's got family, and he's got all these things, and he wants to be a great player and become a first-round draft pick. And I think that there's a lot of challenges associated with that. For ASU to have brought Sam Levit back, it probably would have taken paying him top of the market and also spending in a outsized way on wide receivers and maybe offensive linemen to convince him that he was going to be protected and also have these weapons. But ASU doesn't have the money to compete with the highest end teams in NIL. And that's a whole nother subject matter about essentially everybody agreed to the House settlement to have NIL regulated by this new entity, the College Sports Commission. And now, even though the College Sports Commission is supposed to be the body that evaluates all NIL deals for fair market evaluation, that's not happening. And you have agents that are working directly with boosters and collectives to in this financial race to give money to players above and beyond what is supposed to be allowed. And so how do you show Sam Levit what you're going to be able to do when you can't even do it until January because the transfer portal opens later this year? And should ASU even allocate that amount of resources to quarterback, wide receiver, O-line at the expense or the detriment of its defense or special teams or maybe its run game when the passing attack didn't actually perform that well this season with even early on with Leavitt and Tyson? And so there's a lot of challenges and factors that go into this. But I think ultimately the second part of Kenny Dillingham's comment, which you referenced there, it comes from not an idea of who he's going to get to replace Sam Levit, but rather confidence that ASU financially has the wherewithal, coupled with its success with Sam Levit and Dillingham in earlier jobs at Oregon with Bo Nix and what he was able to do at Florida State and Memphis before that elevated his career, that they'll be able to get quality quarterbacks, one or more, to come in via the transfer portal.
And then just one more thing I want to ask you about with the Kenny Dillingham and Sam Levit relationship. Early on, like near when Sam Levit committed to ASU, transferred from Michigan State, you wrote a column that said he might be the most important player that Kenny Dillingham ever coaches, would be. Do you think that still was or is the case? And how do you think having Sam Levit maybe elevated Kenny Dillingham and his appeal to, they'll have to get a new quarterback out of the portal either way?
Yeah, well, I stand behind that entirely. ASU won a Big 12 championship. Quarterback play, super important in that. Sam Levit had the fewest turnovers among all the regular starting quarterbacks in the Big 12 that season. He contributed to an environment that led to ASU selling out every game this season, right? So imagine the environment and the crowd and the fans are a lot more supportive of ASU now than 2 years ago before the Big 12 championship. And now they're in a much better position to continue or maybe even build upon the success that they've had as a result of what Sam Levit helped ASU accomplish. So I absolutely stand by that. I also stand by other things that I've written about Sam Levit in terms of like his demonstrated leadership, his habits. He's somebody that showed up early, stayed late. He was the guy that was standing out in the sun when a lot of the players were taking their breaks during practice. He was setting an example in the offseason conditioning, trying to beat everybody in sprints. Quarterbacks don't usually do those kinds of things. So he's got a lot of special characteristics. That doesn't mean that he's going to do everything right. He's going to make mistakes. Not being at the banquet, that's a mistake in my opinion. Maybe some other things, like he was at an earlier game this season before the game, then he left. Okay, things like that. You can say maybe that's not the best choices. I think it's a subjective thing as to whether it's in his best interest to stay at ASU or to go and play at a place that if he were to transfer, and I think he's very likely to transfer, even though he hasn't said anything to announce that yet, I think it's very likely to happen. But if he does, he's going to go to a super prominent school. You know, yeah, Lane Kiffin going to LSU. Is Dante Moore going to leave Oregon? He's from Oregon. Is Miami going to have interest? They tend to be top of the market. And then there's a few other possibilities. He's probably going to end up at one of these places if he does transfer, and it would be somewhere where he felt like he had the resources and the roster spend around him to achieve what he wants to. I think it's also a little bit risky. He's going to miss spring ball because of his foot. It's hard to learn a system, to get all the installs down, to understand your teammates and the personnel around you, and then to be able to go execute that when you're just starting from like August and you have a short window of time to be able to do all those things. And so we'll see what happens, but it is, I think, a subjective decision. This isn't like objectively the case that he's better off if he's at ASU versus somewhere else. And I think that all the football people around this situation understand that, from Dillingham to Leavitt, the people in his camp, other ASU's other players and coaches and people that are in the broader college football community, agents and other teams.
Well, it's a whole nother discussion that we could talk about for hours and hours that we have kind of briefly touched on before, ASU's kind of NIL abilities and how it can compete with some of those bigger market schools. And I say that because we're getting a lot of comments about it and how ASU will need to step up in NIL to compete when things like this do arise. You have a star player who all your fans want to keep around. You know, you may not have.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about other transfers and everything. It's super hard to evaluate it only when you see the departures or you think about who the departures are going to be. But ASU is not in as nearly as bad of a situation financially relative to the other top 25 teams or to top 25 teams in the country as it was last year or the year before. So things are better, and ASU won a championship. Now, yes, it is true that ASU needs more to people to step up and businesses. I think that's happening. I think there's going to be, in January, there's going to be some information that people learn. And I also think that the ASU is going to end up getting probably better transfers this year than it had in the last 2 years in terms of their, like, how they're perceived, their rankings, what they've already done from a production standpoint. And I think people, it's hard because we're in such a 24-hour news cycle world.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for people to be like, yeah, let me just chill out and see what happens a month from now in terms of the players that ASU gets and how I feel about that relative to the emotional feeling that I have right now about what's happening with Sam Levit and some of these other developments.
Well, one last thing on the quarterbacks in. Jeff Sims, obviously out of eligibility. He'll be gone. If all things, as all the signs are pointing, Sam Levit does end up transferring. Cam Dyer and then Butter Tollefson are the next two up as of right now. So from a portal standpoint, you posted a whole big long thread of this in the board, which was very educational. So if you're not in the sanctuary, make sure you get in there. He posted like a whole roster off-season evaluation of who's gone, what ASU is going to need to get out of the portal, and we've written and made videos on a lot of the guys who are coming in who might have a chance to fill those roles as freshmen. So just what's your 2 cents on what, if Levit and Sims are both gone, what's your 2 cents on the guys coming in, the guys currently on the team, and then who they might need to bring in?
Yeah, I would use the Sun Bowl as an opportunity to evaluate Cam Dyer and Butter Tollefson. Jeff Sims, I would start him, but I wouldn't play him the whole game, me personally. Everybody has a different philosophy on that. Maybe the idea is let's just try to win the game and do whatever it takes to win the game. And in that scenario where you're just trying to win the game, I think that Jeff Sims probably does give them the best chance. I've watched these guys practice the whole year. And look, Cam Dyer and Butter Tollefson, they're athletic and they have potential, but they're not anywhere near ready to go play at a high level against the ACC champion. It's not good. It's not going to happen, right? Or at least I would be shocked if they went out there and they accomplished that. But I still would like to take a look at them and see what it looks like, and give me a sense of where exactly I'm at from my quarterback room standpoint. If I'm Dillingham and Marcus Arroyo, they have Jake Fetty coming in. He's a highly touted top 100 level
From
prospect
El Paso.
from El Paso. It would have been just amazing if they could have just let Jake Fetty play in the game. Like this, I actually wrote a rule where they would allow mid-year early enrollees from high school to come in even in December. And so I was like talking about the possibility of playing him, but they're not going to be able to. He can't practice or anything before he enrolls at ASU, which won't be until like the first few days of January. So he's not going to be able to play. But it would be pretty cool to see Jake Fetty. And look, I think to answer your question specifically, if Sam Levit leaves, ASU is going to need to take at least one and probably two transfer quarterbacks. I would take a veteran who's already started and shown that they could play successfully. And then, probably that person's going to be older, like a junior or senior. And then I would take another younger, like a second or third year player who's already redshirted and seems to have a lot of upside and might have a chance in the future to play. And the reason I say that is just because quarterback is a position that you need to populate with a lot of players to give yourself the best chance of success. Remember, ASU brought in Jaden Rashada and Jacob Conover and Drew Pine, and none of them lasted. It was like over. And now Sam Levit is in and out. And so you have to be committed to putting as much into bringing in quarterbacks and allowing them to see what they're capable of as you possibly can. And I think, as Dillingham said, he's got a long history and a good track record at recruiting the position and players performing at a high level under him. And so now I think it's about demonstrating that again and seeing if what he said it proves to be true.
And on a more broad level, that transfer portal discussion, Josh Atkins was granted a 6-year of eligibility, ASU starting left tackle, and then starting cornerback the last 2 years, Javen Robinson, very iconic in the minds of Sun Devil fans, that pick against BYU last year to all but secure their spot in the conference championship, announced that they were transferring today, and then a couple of other kind of backups announced that as well.
Yeah. Javen Robinson kind of surprised me. He's been a key part of one of the best secondaries in the Big 12 over the last 2 seasons. I think that we're in a situation now, Gabby, where players are really trying to maximize the money. And so emotionally, if you're ASU's coaches, yeah, you would like to have Javen Robinson and Josh Atkins back, right? But you have to make a decision about how much you're willing to pay for that to happen. And there needs to be monetary valuations that are made on everybody on your own roster. And then you have to hold to that relative to what is the market and what's likely to be available at what price point for these players. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if ASU ends up spending more money on cornerback to replace Javen Robinson. Like, he's a solid player. I think he was 6th by Pro Football Focus in terms of the defensive grades at ASU for the season. Very good tackler for being undersized, very good run defender for being undersized. His stickiness and coverage, at times teams are able to go at him. And, he's good. Is he great? And what is he worth financially? That's the question. Josh Atkins, solid starting left tackle, not an all-league guy in 2 years as a starter at ASU. Better pass pro than a run defender. And ASU just added the number 1 junior college offensive tackle prospect in the country and is going to go out and bring in other players. And this is why I'm saying wait until you see who else comes into the portal before you can evaluate it. It's like the same as what I said about ASU's recruiting class. It was ranked 39th on signing day or whatever. You don't know how good that is until you see what happens with the transfer portal class. So, yeah, a little bit of surprise, but I also think that ASU is sticking to what its evaluations of players are, and I think that there is a long-term benefit to that strategy that Kenny Dillingham's taking.
And ASU is going to need a pretty significant overhaul in this offseason. What do you think they're going to need to accomplish, given that there's no spring portal window? The portal players can officially enter on January 2nd and officially start talking to schools then, and already losing 2/3 of its starters. You posted on the sanctuary today a couple guys that may unexpectedly somewhat be entering their names into the NFL draft. So what big picture is ASU going to need in its offseason this year?
Yeah, it's a good tease to the sanctuary. We'll let people hop in there
Go
if they
check
want
it
to see the
out.
guys that I said are very possibly going to go to the NFL draft early, other than Jordan Tyson, which is the obvious, right? But a couple other guys I
I'm
think
shocked.
have you are shocked. Okay,
I'm just
interesting.
kidding.
Yeah. Well, no, so they're going to need to replace 2 or 3 wide receivers, 2 maybe 3 offensive linemen, 2 maybe 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 1 or 2 probably 2 guys in their secondary, and maybe another running back. So, and tight end, maybe a tight end. So
A lot.
and a punter and a kicker, because you got to overhaul your special teams. So they're going to need around 20 guys in the transfer portal, and more than half of them, probably a dozen, 12 to 15, are guys that they're going to want to be starting right away, or at least in the 2 deep. And the goal, of course, is to have less reliance on transfer portal players as you evolve as a program. But the challenge of that is that you need to invest your money to where you have a higher degree of confidence that you're going to get a return on your investment. And freshmen who are not going to play in most cases, like there's always an exception, but Kai Stewart played as a true freshman this year. And you got a couple of redshirt freshmen, Wade Helton, who have played. But mostly freshmen and redshirt freshmen and even sophomores are not going to play much in this new era. So the idea of spending more money on freshmen who may or may not be able to play early, that's a dangerous strategy, because that money is at the expense of paying for veteran guys who already have college film and have demonstrated a level of success that's more bankable. So I think that as the high school recruiting continues to evolve, they should get better players. Like this freshman class is better than the prior freshman class, which is better than Dillingham's first class. And so if they continue that trend, then more of those guys will be able and ready to play in their second or third years, which then should result in a reduction in the number of transfer portal players that they need to rely upon. But it's not an easy process. And they sort of were able to fake out this process with the success that they had early in a way that made people maybe not understand that these are still big challenges that have to be overcome.
Well, only time will tell, and the entire landscape of college football seems like it's ever changing before our eyes. Kenny Dillingham had a media availability today for the Sun Bowl. He kind of touched on that briefly, so we'll hear from him, and then a word from our presenting sponsor, Jones Auto Centers. And then after our break, we will get into the Sun Bowl, a little bit more dive into that. And then Chris has been in court the past few days, so make sure you tuned to hear
No trouble.
that's not Chris is not in court. He's not on trial. He a court hearing. Anyways, here's Kenny Dillingham.
At the end of the day, the adults were the people who started this mess, and now people try to blame the kids. This isn't a kid's problem. Every kid that transfers, every kid that leaves, this isn't a kid problem. There's not even a problem at all if you don't care that people leave. This is an adult's mess, not a kid's mess. And people try to throw these kids into it. And I get it. They make a lot of money now, but, put the blame on me. I got to do more, to continue that. But This is an adult's problem, not a kid's problem. I have nothing but love for Sam. I want to see him succeed. I'll help him in any way I can in whatever his next chapter.
For over 60 years, the Glenn Jones name has been recognized for integrity and honesty.
And the Jones Auto Center's in Wickenburg.
Jones Ford 30 Valley.
Take a nice country drive out to Buckeye.
When you're talking about Arizona's best, you're talking about the Jones Auto Group. It's quick, fast, strong.
I want to invite you to visit our new facility in Casa Grande and enjoy our country-style way of doing business. We're the Joneses.
Welcome back inside Rock Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. You just heard a quick word from them there, Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman. Here with you today, ASU was announced yesterday will be making its 8th appearance in the Sun Bowl. That's more than any other bowl game that ASU has ever played in. They're playing the ACC champs Duke, who Power 4 conference champion, but 8-5 on the season, beat Virginia in that championship game on Saturday. They also played Duke in 2014 in the Sun Bowl, during which Demario Richard won MVP, 4 touchdowns in a game. Broad 2 days after it was announced. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting that ASU fans are really disappointed, and understandably so, given the high expectations of the season. But I think what that illustrates is that the standards have been raised under Dillingham. Expectations are higher than they were in the past. It used to be that, you got a Sun Bowl appearance. Okay, that was solid. That was good. It wasn't, what any team necessarily was aiming for at the outset of the season. But this year, it seems to have more of a letdown feel than in the past. And I get that, because this was a team that had the potential and talent, had it remained injury-free and played to its capability of winning 10 or more games, making a repeat appearance in the Big 12 championship game, maybe even winning that and going on to the CFP. What we saw happen, of course, is Texas Tech had a windfall of money that built an incredible football team. Like when ASU played Texas Tech, I remember studying for that game, and I'm like, wait a second, both of these defensive ends are NFL starter caliber. Like one of them looks like he could be an all-pro. They have the best linebacker maybe in the country. They have very good players in the secondary. Their offense has really no holes. BYU, I think people saw, even though it was a disappointing championship game performance and led by a freshman quarterback, their offensive line was really good. Their run game was really good. They had a lot of talent. There's been so much money that's been spent before the rules changed that are not now being adhered to. Again, a whole nother podcast conversation. But it's not easy to repeat as a conference champion and have that type of success. It requires a lot of luck and things coming together and avoiding injuries. And ASU didn't really have any of that stuff happen. Still won 8 games, which sort of shows you, okay, like that's pretty good for being in your 3rd year of a program that had a total overhaul and was in its worst 2-year period since World War II. If not for what was accomplished last season, which then skewed to some degree in a way that's understandable, the expectations that I and everyone kind of had for the program moving forward. And now the question to me really more so than just the bowl game, which, okay, ASU is going to play Duke again and we'll see what happens. But I think more so it's about, are they going to be able to continue to have a trajectory that people are okay with? Or if Sam Levit transfers and they lose half or more of their starting seniors and some other transfers, are they not going to be as good? Is the NIL? People are nervous about that. And I understand that. I've said several times, let's see what happens in the next month. And then I'm going to be very honest and give a fair assessment of what I think the roster, where I think the roster's at. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If I don't think ASU's doing a good enough job or it doesn't have enough money to be successful or didn't bring in the players that are going to enable it, no, I'm going to say that. Like I told our audience, our premium audience, our members, after the spring that I thought ASU didn't have enough talent at receiver. I mean, they needed one more talent in the spring portal. They weren't able to add that player. And then we saw that have a real ramification on the season. So I'm going to give you an honest assessment of the roster, but let's just see what happens with the rest of the retention efforts, which Dillingham has said is very important, and then what happens with acquisitions. But the bowl game, I think that's just kind of like everybody's going to hang out and watch that on New Year's Eve day before they or while they're partaking in all of the festivities or before they partake in the rest of the festivity.
With Bandito Yankee Tequila and Devil's Vodka.
You got a whole lineup here of stuff. So you might want to go down to Devil's Liquor, get yourself some El Bandito Tequila and some Devil's Vodka, and pour yourself some of that with some Sly, whether you want the boost.
Bring in the new year.
Or whether you're trying to just have a chill vibe or whatever. That was a really nice natural
Thank you. I thought so too. I was proud of that one.
Yeah.
But you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but just one more thing on the bowl game. Do you think this is more of a, let our seniors play, give them one last hurrah, try and win one last time for them? Or do you think this is more of a get your young guys in there, see where everyone stands, kind of evaluate things and see what you really need in the off season?
Probably both. Like, more so they're going to try to win the game. But I think as a part of that, given that you have transfers and injuries and stuff, throw out some of your other young players and for a series or two here or there, see how they blend and see what they're capable of. They have a little bit more time to get ready with bowl practices and the game not being until the 31st. I think there's a lot of really talented players that are younger that fans haven't seen that much of to this point, and that maybe that would be a good opportunity to do it.
Do you know yet what the practice schedule or what the kind of format of that's going to look like?
Supposed to get that today or tomorrow. I mean, they have up to 15 practices. More than likely, they'll start practicing within the next couple of days, and then they'll go all the way until like the day before or 2 days before Christmas. The players will get a couple days off. Then they'll fly into El Paso maybe on like the 26th. 27th would be the very latest. I would say they'll have some initial bowl festivities there, a press conference there, probably no later than the 28th, and 3 or 4 practices there, and then they'll get ready for the game.
Well, Sun Devil Source will have you covered for that bowl game, of course. All of the practices, things leading up to it. Very festive time of year, and bringing in the new year with Tony the Tiger. What is better than that?
Listen, the last time that ASU played there, I believe Herm Edwards, ASU won. Herm Edwards, or maybe it was 2019, the 2019 game. They bathed Herm Edwards in Frosted Flakes.
Oh,
it was,
that could be fun.
And I'm like, and I wrote my lead about that. It's not the it's something about the effect of it's not the Gatorade bath that you aspire to for winning a bigger game, but at that point in time, ASU was building, and that was like a cool thing, and so they celebrated in the bathing of the. So we'll see what happens with Kane Dillingham if there's any breakfast cereal involved in any celebration.
What are your thoughts on Frosted Flakes? I don't know if I'm the biggest fan.
Wouldn't make my top 5.
I would have to agree. But
no offense, Tony.
No offense, Tony. Please don't come after us in El Paso. But I'm sure you're all wondering why Chris has been in court. And you've been tweeting about this a little bit, but former ASU Senior Associate Athletic Director David Cohen is suing the Board of Regents and ASU for wrongful termination back for events that happened in 2019. It is now almost 2026, and it has taken it that long to go to court.
Yeah,
you've been in there, quite a bit. What can you tell us about what's happening, everything going on?
Yeah, it's surreal, like how long it's taken to get to this point. Dave Cohen was fired in 2019. Several months after there was an incident at the Pac-12 tournament in which a former ASU booster named Bart Ware, who was disassociated later by the university, much later, allegedly inappropriately touched the wives of David Cohen and Bobby Hurley, ASU's basketball coach, and another assistant, Ben Wood, his wife as well. And then Cohen testimony in court brought this to the attention of Ray Anderson, who was then ASU's athletic director, and other people who worked at ASU who had a mandatory duty to report if one of their employees elevated a claim of sexual harassment against them or somebody, their wife or whatever. And so Ray Anderson testified this past week, and he admitted several mistakes. He admitted that he shouldn't have gone on a golf trip with Bart Ware and Gene Boyd and Herm Edwards to Carmel, where Herm Edwards has a house. After learning about this allegation, he admitted that it was a mistake to not report it in one of the 3 channels that he was obligated to do so due to the mandatory reporting responsibility that he had, and a couple other things that he said that he were mistakes that he regrets. Kathy Cohen testified, Dave Cohen's wife, she said that she was sexually groped. Bart Ware and Bobby Hurley's wife testified, and we've seen the then ASU's head of HR athletics, Kevin Salcido, testify, and others. And my sense of things at this point is that, Arizona's an at-will employment state. You can be fired for any reason except an illegal reason. And the illegal reasons would be for retaliation or due to some, sexual assault, thing or some other HR related type of a matter. And it seems to me that given what Anderson is acknowledging in court and that there was no investigation of the Bart Ware incident until after Cohen had been fired or at least placed on administrative leave, that he does have a case. And I don't know how a jury is going to see this. I'm just observing it as any individual person would in the courtroom. But it just speaks to how dysfunctional and how poorly run ASU's athletic department was in this period of time with Ray Anderson. And there's allegations that have been made against David Cohen about his employment and things that, were not, not positive about his tenure at ASU. But he received a $95,000 bonus that was completely up to the discretion of Ray Anderson out of $100,000 maximum that it could have been. So he gave him 95% of the bonus that was potentially attainable, which was the highest amount that he had been given in his tenure in 5 years as an ASU employee. And there was nothing presented in the case about what was in his work file that would have led to an understanding of him being fired, irrespective of kind of this whole situation. So it's a black eye for ASU. We're going to be doing more reporting on this as the case continues this week. I think that the jury is supposed to have this case by Wednesday or Thursday. Like Bobby Hurley is supposed to testify. I don't think that's going to go well for Ray Anderson or the university, because he and David Cohen were pretty tight and their wives were involved in the allegations. And there was no investigation of the booster until after Cohen had been terminated. So I'll have some reporting. I've already posted a long thing for our members in the Devil's Sanctuary. So for people who are members, there's a thread, and you can go read a synopsis of what's taking place to this point. If you're not a member, like, there's certain things that we're just going to have for our members, and should hop in there.
So subscribe.
Yes.
Subscribe. All right, we're going to have a quick word here from another one of our sponsors, drinkontheslide.com. These 3 little cans we have right in front of us here. And then basketball win over Oklahoma in the Jerry Colangelo Classic. They're now 7-2. But we'll get into that after this quick word. back inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman. This is our second to last podcast from Rack of the year, so we want to thank them for their hospitality all year. It's been a blast doing these. First year of having our live podcast like this, and I would say it's gone pretty well. We kind of built everything from the ground up on our streaming service.
Getting better and better.
Getting better and better. And then we have some new things that I'm trying to do with it for next year to hopefully make it even better too. So if you've been watching, or even if this is your first time watching our live podcast, thank you. And thank you, Rack Scottsdale. We would not, of course, have it without them.
Only going up. And I would say also that it's going to be one of my New Year's resolutions for the first half of the year to have a lot more guests on our podcast, former players, people who work behind the scenes at ASU that maybe a lot of people don't know. We're going to try to really kind of elevate those stories and talk about a lot of that stuff. So I think that's going to be cool too.
Well, I know you have a lot of good relationships with those kind of behind the scenes people who make everything run that people may not know about or may not know the duties of. So that'll be interesting to get their perspectives should they come on the podcast. But ASU basketball, 7-2, jumped some other Big 12 teams in the Ken Palm rankings.
Did you say 7-2 for ASU basketball?
Chris, you scared me. I thought you were yelling at me because I got the record wrong.
No.
I was like,
you got it right.
I know, but it sounds wrong in my head too, given,
it's pretty impressive. It's just really impressive non-conference.
Do you think this team is, based on the eye test, based on the record, you can look at it? That was kind of the case last year, a good non-conference performance. They looked like they might be able to not be as bad as they were, and then 4-16 in Big 12 play. Do you think this team is going to mirror what happened last year? Or do you think this team actually looks good and could flip the tide on that?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think they'll be better. Last year's team had a bunch of injuries that you couldn't have really expected. It just goes to show you like what happens if dudes get hurt. But there's a chemistry and a culture with this team that feels different. They're more connected. I think that having a point guard like Mo Odom, who elevates all the players around him, is a huge part of that. And then also just the international aspect of this particular team with 7 players from overseas or South America, in the case of Santiago Truitt. They just have more of a selfless approach to the game, and their skills, they seem to pair better with what Bobby Hurley wants to be stylistically. And I had said, in recent like post-game shows after games, maybe even on the podcast once or twice, if Gerbovich, Truitt, Marcus Adams, if those guys started to make threes, because they're forwards that are going to be 3-and-D guys mostly, if those guys start to hit shots, then that would open up the floor a lot for Mo Odom to get into the pick and roll situations that he wants to be in with his bigs, right? Masamba Diop is a big who he can shoot it. He's a good roller. He understands space. He's got good feet and hands. So if you can get into a lot of these PNR situations with Mo Odom and Diop, and then you can get some more ISO opportunities for Odom, who's really good at being able to get to where he wants with the ball in his hands. This team has a chance to be pretty good on the offensive end of the floor. Their issues defensively were primarily not communicating well enough, not being connected well enough, giving up too many offensive rebounds to opponents. Against Oklahoma, downtown at the whatever they call that arena now, mortgage matchup
Phoenix,
whatever it is,
footprint / whatever
it was before that. In the first 2 minute and a half, ASU gave up 2 offensive rebounds, and Bobby Hurley pulled all 5 stars off the court, hockey substitution. 5 guys rolled in, and then they picked up their intensity, and then Mo Odom went back onto the court, and then from there they went on a huge run, 27-2 or some crazy run, and they pretty much dominated Oklahoma, which is like ranked in the top, in like the 50s in Ken Palm. And one of the things I just wanted to point out is that ASU, Ken Palm is like the is like the gold standard for basketball evaluation, rankings, analytics, stuff. ASU started the season well outside the top 100, like maybe 120 or something, and now is up to 73rd in KenPom. And the Big 12 is such a gauntlet. It's so difficult that, to put this in perspective, there's still 11 teams ranked ahead of ASU in KenPom, including 5 top 25 teams: Iowa State, Arizona, which just moved to number 1 in the AP top 25, BYU, Houston, and Kansas. And then you have a next tier that includes Texas Tech, Baylor, Oklahoma State, TCU, UCF, Colorado, ASU, Cincinnati, West Virginia, before you get to the bottom 2 of K-State and Utah. But the reality is that you could conceivably get up to 10 teams from the Big 12 into the NCAA tournament, and ASU's non-conference performance now is good enough that it's not going to take like an extraordinarily stunning Big 12 conference effort to put ASU into the conversation. They're going to have to play really well. Like, they're going to have to maybe even play better than they have to this point. But you would think that they should be able to get a little bit better, given that 14 scholarship players are new. They are still learning how to play with one another, and all those little nuances that you get from just those extra reps and experiences, and how you communicate and work cohesively on the defensive end and pass the ball and move without the ball and all that stuff. So it's a much better looking team than I had anticipated, or I think almost anybody had really anticipated. And you got to give credit to Bobby Hurley for, with his back up against the wall, being in a lame duck contract situation in the last year of his deal, being able to assemble this type of a roster without the resources to give you an advantage in any kind of a way. Kudos to him. It just seems like whenever he's got his toughest assignments, that's kind of when he seems to do better. And so you can't write this team off. I think that they're actually kind of enjoyable to watch, and I think people who have probably like tuned out, if they gave it a shot, they might agree.
Well, beginning of the year, the sentiment was fire Bobby Hurley, get him out of here. And now this team is better than expected. And now we have a comment actually that says extend Bobby Hurley. So
yeah,
do you think
on the board too, people are talking about it?
If you have a good season and you're Graham Rossini looking at this basketball team, obviously very rare lame duck situation for Bobby Hurley, do you think if he goes on a run here, maybe makes the tournament or just has some sort of upside, they extend him? Or what do you think the kind of gauge or the bar will be that he has to meet or surpass in order to be extended?
It's a good question. I think if he makes the tournament, he's probably going to get an offer to stay at ASU for another few years on a contract, because that would be really impressive. If he doesn't make the tournament, I think all bets are off. I think he has to at least be like very close, or to make it, to have a chance to return to ASU next year, just because like ASU hasn't gone to a round of beyond the round of 64 with him as the coach in 10 years. All the prior coaches did that, and there's been a lot of turmoil. Last season was really dysfunctional in a lot of ways, and so I think to be able to overcome that and in a way that gives confidence about the ability to do that again and again, I think you have to have a very stable, reliable product, not a lot of locker room or off-court issues, and also have some confidence that a lot of your players who have remaining eligibility will want to return and keep it going. Because remember, ASU for like 3 years in a row now, it's just been a revolving door. All the players have been talented enough, not all, but a lot of the players who have been talented enough to be successful, they've only been at ASU for a year, and then they've cycled out to other schools, usually higher profile schools that ASU's lost its most talented players to. So unless that changes, I think you need to still probably go in a different direction. But if you have some confidence from your players that they want to come back and play for ASU in a successful season, okay, then maybe there's something to talk about.
Well, only time will tell. 4 games left until that conference slate begins against Colorado on January 3rd, NAU tomorrow, Santa Clara this weekend, number 25 UCLA, who just snuck into the AP rankings, and then back-to-back Pac-12 matchups for ASU. They'll play Oregon State after that, and then Colorado. So I guess 3 former Pac-12 matchups in a row. There we go. Well, we'll have all the updates on football. We'll have all the updates on Sam Levit, everything we talked about in this podcast. There's a lot of things kind of up in the air with Sun Devil athletics at this point. You'd think things would kind of wind down, but everything's ramping up.
Transfer portal season has almost like replaced the traditional school recruiting season. We used to have a big board and we're tracking all these guys really closely and what they were going to do. And it's not that high school recruiting is it's not that it's unimportant anymore, but transfer portal season is more intense and it probably means more now. And they delayed the start of the portal to January 2nd. You can't even really enter. You can only announce that you're going to enter. But the first 2 weeks of January are going to be mega intense. Like
Happy New Year.
Like get your coffee ready and bookmark the sanctuary and make sure that you got our transfer portal tracker bookmarked. I already updated today with the 5 entrants for ASU to this point and all of the relevant information that's needed. And we'll be doing that throughout the week as additional names go in. I wouldn't be surprised if ASU ends up with around 12.5 transfers, players that depart, and they'll probably add 20, as I said earlier. So there's a lot. We're talking about another, whatever that is, 35 more players that we're going to be talking about in one way or the other, in or out, and sharing what all that means, like to the audience, and trying to put into perspective at each position the relative health of the roster. And one of the things I actually enjoy the most about the job is doing that stuff. And then I also write evaluations about every single player on the team that typically we do. Like we'll do initial quick evaluations on the newcomers, and then once spring ball is complete, especially with no spring transfer window, I do like a deep dive evaluation on every single player on the roster, 1 through 105 or whatever it is now. So, and then what that looks like at every single position group. By the way, Gabby, I didn't even share this with you. For our Cyber Monday, we had this Black Friday to Cyber Monday special, right? On the Cyber Monday alone, we had 58 new signups, which is around the top 5 day all time in Sun Devil Source history.
Dang.
Dating to 2015. And we've come a little bit down since that Monday, but we're currently within 1% or so of our peak all-time subscribership at Sun Devil Source. So thank you to everybody. They're selling out the stadium. There's more people that are paying attention to what we're doing, and there's more business interests. And I think people hear more in January about some businesses that are stepping up and things that are happening that are going to benefit Sun Devil athletics. And so, yeah, Sam Levit might be leaving, and Javen Robinson and Skrilla, Josh Atkins might be leaving. I still have a lot of confidence in what Kane Dillingham is doing and who he is, the ethos of his program, the culture. And I think ASU fans should be confident in the overall broad situation and how things project moving into next year and beyond.
Well, there's no better time than now to subscribe. All the analysis coming your way, all the news as it unfolds, with so many things that are about to unfold for Sun Devil athletics. We have you covered, as Chris said, in the number one source for ASU news. There's a huge forum, online community discussion board on there too, where he posts all the analysis. All of our subscribers have interactions with each other. It's a really great time. I spend probably about an hour every day on there myself, just kind of reading through things. Some funny things to say, and I learn a lot from you as well.
Thank you. And we curate all of like the best, most important video stuff. So if you're like one of those social media, find what everybody's saying and all the videos or whatever, we just bring it all to you in one thread. Like here's
right there for you. Time saving.
Yeah, here's your concierge service of the videos that you want to watch
on a platter.
along with all the analysis and all the commentary that you want to get. And it's still 50% off. So if you want to, and also you can do a gift for a friend or something like that. If you're already a member and you want to give a gift to bring somebody into the sanctuary, please do that. That'd be great.
Well, no better time than now. If you are already subscribed, thank you very much. We had over 80 viewers at one point during the podcast today. That's our highest in, I think, definitely since Kenny Dillingham came on the podcast, and maybe since our very first episode that we did here at Rack Scottsdale. We see all you guys interacting with each other in the comments. This is definitely the most comments we've gotten on a live show in a while. So if you want more of that and you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to Sun Devil Source, and you can chat it up with everybody in the Devil Sanctuary. I want to thank our sponsors one last time: Jones Auto Centers, Drink on the Sly, Devil's Vodka, El Bandito Yankee Tequila, and Devil's Liquor. We thank all of you. This wouldn't be possible without you, and of course, Rack Scottsdale for the hospitality. And that's all we have today. So we will see you next week, and we will see you in the new year, and for all the analysis on everything that unfolds. And make sure you subscribe. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman for Sun Devil Source.